Three sinister and spine-chilling tales from the haunted Appalachian Mountains revealed. In the eerie twilight of the Appalachian Mountains, legends whisper through the pines, tales of chilling spirits that roam the darkened woods. Rumors of faces seen in the fog, hands that linger too long on the back of your neck, and shadows that follow where no footfalls tread. And in one such cabin, the Roberts family's lives would soon intertwine with these very horrors, forever changing their fate. The old cabin sat like a dented tin can on the outskirts of a fading town, a place where the weight of years pressed down on both the structures and the souls that inhabited them. Inside, Mike Roberts, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and tired eyes, worked late into the night at the garage. His body ached, longing for sleep. Meanwhile, Sarah, a determined schoolteacher, busily patched together threads of normalcy for their kids. When they gathered around the flickering lamp, the radio crackled with ghostly tales, spinning folklore about forbidden woods where forlorn spirits linger. Laughter echoed, yet the undercurrent of unease seeped in, like a slow leak in a rusted roof. One evening, shadows flickered just beyond the windows, sending icy shivers down their spines. Generally, they dismissed it as old wood creaking or perhaps a deer darting by. But as days passed, events grew more sinister. A neighbor, the unremarkable Mr. Hargrove, seemed to loom larger in their lives. Jake, the 12-year-old, started to obsess over local whispers, piecing together the unsettling puzzle of disappearances. A convoy of missing faces, each part of the fabric of their lives, turning neighbors into ghosts. Despite his parents' efforts to comfort him, tension thickened in the air. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As fear crept in, the family's laughter faded. Lily's giggles turned to whispered fears, and Mike's brows furrowed deeper each time he passed the barren van parked at the end of their street. Each evening, darkness draped their home in a suffocating veil, amplifying every creak and groan of their tired cabin. The mere sight of that van sent dread spiraling through their lives. One fateful night, the air grew heavy with anticipation, and so began their frantic escape. The woods around them came alive, branches clawing at their skin, echoing cries of terror that churned with every frantic step they took. Jake, glancing back, shrieked as a silhouette emerged from the depths. Mr. Hargrove, his wide, toothy grin like a crescent moon against the pitch-black sky. Time slowed as they confronted him, his presence spilling long-buried family secrets into the night air. The very legends they had dismissed now wrapped around them like a noose. As the weight of truth descended, their history stared back, awakening dormant nightmares. The Roberts family stood at the threshold between survival and despair, grappling with shadows that loomed within their own bloodline, left to ponder one dreadful question. Could they escape the nightmare that was now their reality? Adrenaline coursed through Mike's veins as he turned to face Mr. Hargrove. The moonlight painted eerie patterns across the forest floor, illuminating the old man's face with a ghostly glow. In that moment, with the air thick as molasses, Jake's frightened expression mirrored his own, a mix of confusion, fear, and an underlying instinct to flee. Your family. They always run, Hargrove rasped, his voice rasping like the dry leaves beneath their feet. Why not face the truth instead? Sarah's heart pounded as she clutched Lily's hand. What do you mean? She demanded, her voice breaking like brittle twigs. Your roots dig deep, deeper than you know. Hargrove's grin widened unnaturally, a tale so old that even the mountains quiver with its memory. Suddenly branches rustled behind them, sending a wash of panic through the family. The shadow of the van loomed just beyond the tree line, parked, but seemingly alive, a silent predator waiting for the right moment to pounce. The dreadful legend of disappearances danced in Jake's mind, taunting and twisting. each face from the townsfolk flickering through his memory like eerie phantoms. "Keep moving," Mike shouted, urging his family to break away from the confrontation. Just as they turned, Hargrove stepped closer, blocking their path. "Do you really think you can outrun what's inside?" he said, voice low and deadly. "You can't escape the past. It will claim what is owed." As if summoned by his words, shadows shifted in the underbrush, gliding closer, hungry and restless. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, as if the very woods rose up against them. Panic gripped Mike. He felt the suffocating presence of the past, of mistakes made generations before him. Mistakes that had echoed through time, manifesting in flesh and blood now standing in front of them. "Run!" Sarah screamed, pulling Lily close as they darted past Hargrove. The trees pressed in around them. Every rustle felt like fingers reaching for their backs. They could hear the whispers of the woods, ancient voices echoing warnings of danger, of secrets long buried beneath the roots. Jake lagged only for a moment, the jarring realization hitting him like a cold wave. "We can't just abandon him," he shouted back, frozen in place. But the voices whispered louder, drowning out his thoughts, their pleas twisting into shrieks. "No!" Mike grabbed Jake's arm, yanking him forward. "He'll only drag us down." They plowed deeper into the forest, racing against the unseen horrors that loomed behind them. But just as they thought they might lose the darkness, a howl echoed in the night, primal and chilling. The family stumbled to a halt. A figure emerged from the depths of the trees, a silhouette, tall and monstrous, glowing with an otherworldly light. It stood as a grotesque reminder of all they had tried to evade, an embodiment of their fears unleashed. "Turn back now!" The echo of Mr. Hargrove came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Leave while you still can." The Roberts family stood paralyzed, their breath hitching in their throats. The past had come for them, dressed as a nightmare they couldn't outrun. And as Jake's eyes darted around for an escape, a horrifying buried truth clawed its way to the surface. Each heartbeat echoed, warning them that survival would not come without sacrifice. What sacrifice would they have to make to reclaim their lives? The towering figure took a step forward, and the weight of dread threatened to crush them all. Jake screamed, the sound piercing the suffocating silence of the woods. "What are you willing to pay?" it hissed, echoing the timeless question of the Appalachian hauntings, as shadows danced wickedly around them. The answer lingered silently in their hearts, ready to unleash the true terror of what awaited them. The ground trembled beneath them as the monstrous figure drew closer, its form shifting and blending with the shadows that enveloped the trees. Fear seeped into Jake's bones, turning his legs to lead. He glanced at his family, their eyes wide with terror, then back at the creature, towering over them. Every instinct screamed to run, but his legs wouldn't obey. "Let go!" Mike shouted, shoving Jake in a desperate attempt to break free of fear's grip. They stumbled backward together, the dark clutches of the forest reaching out, hungry for their panic. "Stay together!" Sarah's voice cut through the chaos like a lifeline, a flicker of certainty in the void. She turned, pulling Lily to her side, shielding her from the malevolence that thrived in the forest. But Lily's small voice came out tremulous. "Mommy." "What is that?" The felt weight of the truth hung thick in the air, oppressing. With each passing moment the shape grew clearer, twisted features, hollow eyes that glimmered like starless voids. Its mouth curled into a grimace that bore no semblance of humanity. "Are you ready to face it?" the figure hissed, dripping malice. "The sins of your family are not so easily forgotten. It calls for its due." The woods swirled with whispers, dark memories gliding through Jake's mind. Faces of the townsfolk, their inexplicable childish laughter turning into tortured screams of warning. Shadows slithered at his feet, clawing at the memories buried deep within him. "Run!" Mike bellowed again, his shout a raw, animalistic plea. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown. As if their fear provided the command, the creature lunged. It moved with unnatural speed, a blur of darkness aimed at them like a speeding freight train. Panic surged through Jake like fire, igniting instincts as he grabbed Lily's hand, pulling Sarah along with them. They twisted through the thick trees, dodging roots that clawed and branches that slapped at their faces. Every breath felt like a struggle, air thick with dread. "Don't look back," Sarah ordered, her voice desperate over the cacophony of rustling leaves and snapping twigs. "Keep running." From the depths of the darkness, the echoes of laughter morphed into malicious howls, a deranged symphony that reverberated against the backdrop of the night. The family ran until their lungs burned, the nightmare gnashing behind them, relentless and insatiable. Mike's heart thudded wildly, but with every step deeper into the woods it became clearer. They weren't just running from the creature. They were running from the truths hidden deep in their blood, tethered to that ancient evil. The deeper they ventured, the tighter the threads of their lineage wound around them. Suddenly the ground dropped, a steep incline leading into an unseen abyss. With no time to hesitate, they leaped into the darkness below, tumbling and rolling, scrapes and cuts gnashing into their skin. Where are we?" Jake gasped, the panic bringing a metallic taste to his mouth as they hit the ground. The fall seemed to have led them into some sort of cavern, but the air was thick, stagnant with something old and watchful. Sounds echoed, breath, footsteps, or something worse. Light flickered from somewhere deeper within, illuminating grotesque carvings on the walls, visions of their family tree interwoven with horrors that stretched beyond comprehension. Mike's voice trembled. "We have to find a way out, fast." But even as he spoke, they felt the presence gathering, a force rising like smoke through the walls of earth and stone, demanding their attention. A reminder that the past was still very much alive, just waiting for the right moment to claim what was owed. As the light flickered and darkened again, Jake stumbled into something sticky, warm. An echo rang out, a haunting whisper right at his ear. "What have you brought to offer?" Their hearts raced. Would it be enough to meet the demands of a past long overdue? What was the true price they would have to pay to escape the darkness creeping in around them? The cavern seemed to pulse, alive with the whispers of the past. Jake's heart hammered against his ribs, each beat drowning out the fear that clutched his throat. He wiped his hand on his pants, but the sticky substance clung stubbornly. Something about it felt wrong, sacrilegious almost. "Stay close," Sarah whispered, her voice small in the vast emptiness. She instinctively drew Lily nearer, but the girl's wide eyes held a question that no one dared to voice. "What did that thing want?" Mike asked, his voice low, barely above a whisper. The air was electric, charged with an ancient dread. As if summoned by their thoughts, distant laughter echoed through the chamber, chilling them to the bone. It twisted, bounced from wall to wall, morphing into mocking cries that resonated like funeral dirges. Each sound pursued them, creeping around them like smoke. "Jake," Lily murmured, her grip tightening on his hand. "I'm scared." He knelt to her level, forcing a smile, but he could feel his own panic bubbling just beneath the surface. "Me too, Lily. Just hold on tight. We'll find a way out." With no light but the flickering glow that shivered against the carvings, they crept deeper into the cavern, each step causing their nerves to fray further. Shadows whipped about like living entities, slithering closer with every heartbeat, eager to ensnare them. "How do we escape this place?" Mike spoke suddenly, his voice rising in pitch, urgency catching like a flame. "We didn't bring anything to offer." The flickering light flared, illuminating a grotesque depiction of their family lineage woven with horror. Jake's breath hitched. The etchings revealed the visages of their ancestors, faces twisted in agony that morphed into something disturbingly familiar. The creature haunting them was there too, shackled by their own bloodline. "This isn't just a story," Sarah gasped, her hands trembling as she traced the lines with her fingers. "It's a warning." Suddenly the ground shifted beneath them, a minor quake echoing the terror in their hearts. Dust and loose stones fell from the ceiling like rain, and the cavern erupted into a cacophony of groans, instruments of something ancient and cruel. "What do we do?" Mike shouted, his voice rising over the chaos. "Look," Jake pointed toward a small crevice in the wall, light flickering from within. "Maybe there's a way through." They rushed toward it, But as they closed the distance, the laughter returned, higher now, sounding more like wailing ghosts demanding retribution. It crescendoed, filling the air with a sickly sweet scent of decay and fear that clawed at Jake's throat. As they approached the opening, a figure emerged. Tall, shadowy, a silhouette framed by the light. The creature stood still, but he felt its eyes boring into him. "What have you brought to offer?" The voice hissed again, a cruel mockery of a family member they all recognized but dared not name. Each word dripped with malice, coating the air thickly, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. "Run!" Sarah screamed, but the ground quaked. The walls of the cavern tightened, trying to ensnare them. Their only option was to face the entity, whatever it was. Jake's mind raced. What would they trade? Their sanity? Their past? Before he could answer, they were pulled back, stumbling into a pitch-black abyss, dragging Lily with them, into the very heart of what lay beneath. "What have you brought?" It echoed again, deeper now, more haunting, demanding. Would they answer? Would they lose themselves in the promise of escape? Fear tangled within them, desperate and consuming as they faced the true price of their lineage. The shadows shifted closer, whispering secrets of betrayal, loss, and the true cost of survival. There was no turning back. What would they have to sacrifice to break the darkness that chased them from the depths? The darkness around them felt like a living thing, wrapping tight like a vice. Jake's breath came in short gasps. The laughter echoed again, now mixed with shrieks and whispers that twisted through the shadows, filling the air with unease. "Stay close!" he shouted, desperation coloring his voice. He could taste the bitter fear on his tongue as they moved deeper into the unknown. "Where are we?" Lily's shaky voice cut through the chaos, but he had no answer. The light flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. Each flicker seemed to mock their plight. "Please, let's just find a way out." Mike's panic was palpable. His eyes darted around wildly, searching for something, anything that might offer hope. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed, and a cloud of dust descended, swirling around them. With every breath, Jake felt the weight of dread settling in his gut. They pressed on, stumbling over craggy outcroppings, nearly tumbling into the gaping chasms just beyond their sight. A glimmer caught Jake's eye, flickering in the darkness. "There!" he pointed, hope igniting a spark in his chest. "I see something." As they moved closer, they could make out shapes formed from the stone. A massive altar covered in ancient symbols, a sacrificial offering from a time long forgotten. It looked as though it had been polished by the hands of those long gone, stained with dark ritual. "What's this?" Sarah whispered, drawn forward. "Maybe it's a way to appease whatever that thing is," Mike suggested, a wild idea taking root. "It asked for an offer. Maybe we can give it something." Jake's heart raced, but the thought of sacrifice made him hesitate. What if it takes something we can't get back? But before they could debate further, a chilling breeze swept through, carrying the sounds of laughter and whispers that twisted around them. "Your bloodline. Offered." The voice from before slithered through the air, deeper now, clawing at their resolve. Lily trembled against Jake, her innocence stark against the evil pressing around them. "Jake, I don't want to give anything away," she pleaded. In that moment, the altar pulsed with life, glowing a deep crimson that reflected their fear. The stone seemed to ripple, demanding something from them, pulling at the very essence of who they were. Jake could feel the weight of his heritage, the darkness that ran through their blood. "Let's just get out of here," Sarah urged, her voice wavering. They turned to retreat, but the cavern trembled again, the walls shifting, blocking their path. The only way forward was through the altar, the very heart of the horror they had stumbled upon. "Jake, what do we do?" Mike's voice betrayed his fear. "What if we offer something from our past, something to break the connection?" Jake's mind raced, realizing that they might be drawing closer to a terrible truth. What if the cost is our memories? Can we live without who we are? A whisper, barely audible, echoed from the walls. "Offer the only truth you know." Panic gripped them. What memories would they sacrifice to escape this nightmare? What part of themselves could they bear to lose? The shadows began to swirl with an intensity that crackled in the air. The laughter morphed into cries of both anger and sorrow, as if the cavern itself was alive and hungry. Just then, the altar surged, brightening wildly, overwhelming their senses. "Give yourselves, or perish," the voice demanded, resonating through the stone. With dread settling into their bones, they faced the altar, knowing they had no choice. What would they deliver to save themselves? As Jake took a step forward, the shadows lunged, reaching for him, hungry and relentless. "Jake!" Sarah screamed, but it was too late. Clarity turned to confusion as Jake felt his grip on reality slip. The shadows closed in, and as his memories began to unravel, he realized they might not be able to find their way back. It was the last choice they would ever make. What darkness awaited their decision? Would they leave behind everything they once were? The shadows closed around Jake, a suffocating presence snuffing out the last flickers of light. Time stretched, a slow coil tightening around their very souls. Panic surged through him, but something deeper gripped his mind, a fog of forgotten memories as they began to slip away. "Don't let go," he yelled, desperation clawing at him. He felt the tug of something unseen pulling at memories he thought were safe. Names, faces, laughter, they all flitted just out of reach, like wisps of smoke dissolving in the air. Lily's eyes filled with terror as she watched him. "What's happening, Jake? Don't let it take you." Her voice trembled, each syllable laced with fear that resonated in the dark. Mike stepped closer, but the altar pulsed again, screaming for attention. "We can't give it anything. It'll take us all." But Jake was already stepping toward the altar, each footfall heavy with uncertainty. He could see flashes of his life, flicking through his mind like old film reels in a dying projector. Childhood moments, his first bike ride, his best friend's laughter, the smell of his mother's cooking. They all danced around him, flickering between the darkness and the light. "Jake, please," Sarah begged, her voice almost a whisper. "What are you doing?" "I need to know what it wants," he shot back, wrestling with the impulse that cascaded through him, urging him to sacrifice. The shadows pulsated, swirling like ink in water, wrapping around them in an oppressive embrace. The laughter twisted into something darker, a chorus of grief that made his skin crawl. "Remember who you are," Lily screamed suddenly, breaking through the horrific melody. "Don't let it take you." But even as she said it, Jake felt the creeping numbness. A fragrant smell of decay filled the air, choking him. It coiled around his mind, whispering promises of ease, an end to suffering, while that chilling voice taunted from the shadows. "Give yourselves, or perish." Jake shuddered as fear twisted with something he could not name, a glimmer of curiosity mixing with dread. What if it sets us free?" he murmured, drawing a horrified look from his friends. "Free? You think this is freedom?" Mike's face was pale, his breath quickening. "It's a trap, Jake. Look at the altar. It's alive." The stone glowed, pulsing with a deep malevolent hunger that resonated with the very bones of the cavern. They were caught, trapped not just in this place but in their own spiraling thoughts, flailing amid the black tendrils of fear that coiled around their resolve. "Jake," Sarah's voice cracked like glass, shivering with desperation. "We can find another way. We're stronger than whatever this is." His heart raced, battling against the pull of darkness. What if we can't find our way back? What if this is it? Suddenly, a furious wind swept through the chamber, throwing them off balance. The shadows hissed, their laughter crescendoing into a maddening roar that filled clothes and hearts alike with dread. It felt as if they were being torn apart at their very essence, and beneath that terror lay a chilling truth. The choice was theirs. But at what cost? Jake's resolve waned, that sinister voice creeping again, whispering dark promises of release. He found himself reaching toward the altar, as if drawn by something far greater than himself. "No!" Lily's words cut through the chaos, electrifying him. "We're not giving anything up. Fight it!" As her words echoed, the shadows jerked back like a spooked animal. But Jake could feel it, the whisper of truth buzzing beneath the surface of his skin. As he stood at the edge of the altar, He sensed that simply returning to who they were wouldn't be enough. They had to confront the darkness within first. The altar shuddered violently, the air thick with the scent of burning coal and fear, as the shadows coiled more tightly. "Jeopardy demands a price," the voice laughed, rising conspiratorially from the stones, as if it sought to conceal the tremors of their hearts. "Will you dare confront it, or will you lose yourselves?" The laughter morphed into distorted cries, dripping with malice, while the very ground beneath their feet seemed to sway. This was the moment. Would they stand and fight, or vanish into the relentless dark? As Jake felt the first threads of his identity beginning to fray, a scream pierced the air, a scream that did not belong to any of them. It came from the shadows. What had they awakened? What horror lurked just beyond the veil of their reality? The scream echoed, a chilling wail that slithered through the thick air, making the hairs on Jake's arms stand on end. He turned, pulse racing, searching the darkness for the source. Shadows writhed like living entities, fluctuating unpredictably, as if they were aware of the fear they instilled. "Did you hear that?" Mike gasped, eyes wide with horror. The oppressive presence grew heavier, coursing through the chamber and nestling deep within their bones, whispering unknowable horrors. It sent waves of sickening dread spiraling in their stomachs. They huddled closer together, a makeshift barrier against the terrible unknown. "It's just a trick," Jake stammered, though a tremor in his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "It wants us to panic." But doubt tugged at his thoughts as if teasing him. What if this was not merely a mind game? Lily gripped Jake's arm, squeezing tight enough to leave bruises. "We can't leave each other. We have to stand together." The altar pulsed ominously, an unmistakable heartbeat, strong and raw. "You cannot escape what you truly are," it rumbled, a voice weaving through their minds, tightening like a noose. "Your fears make you weak. Embrace them." But they were not ready to yield. Mike clenched his fists, his knuckles white. "No, we refuse," he shouted, though uncertainty dripped from every word. With a sudden surge of defiance, Jake stepped closer again, drawn inexplicably toward the altar, as if it offered a secret only he could uncover. Images flashed through his mind. Terror and ecstasy, failures and victories. They clawed at him, demanding to be acknowledged. Then, from the depths, something emerged. A shape twisted through the shadows, a grotesque figure glimmering with malice, a reflection of their own darkest fears. It was a nightmare made real, eyes glinting like shards of glass, hollow but watching. "Face me, Jacob," it intoned, dripping with venom. "Show me your worth." Jake recoiled, heart thumping erratically in his chest. "I am not afraid of you," he shouted, though he felt the tremor in his voice. "Ah, but you should be," it sneered, evident pleasure curling in its tone. "You are nothing without your memories, without your past. Surrender, and all will be restored." The darkness enveloped him, and Jake felt fingers of despair intertwining with his very essence. He faltered, memories assaulting him, his mother's gentle laugh, Lily's smile during their first date, the warmth of the sun on his skin. But alongside those were tinged memories too. A friend betrayed, love lost, chances missed. Could this entity truly grant him a reprieve? "Jake," Sarah's voice cut through, pulling him from the abyss. "Don't listen. This isn't freedom, it's a chain." Her words ignited a flicker of resolve within him. The shadows hissed, a chorus of anger, as if the very notion of defiance disgusted them. Jake struggled against the tide, fighting to rise above the deep currents of despair that threatened to swallow him whole. He turned back toward his friends. Their faces were drawn, but hope flickered in their eyes. They believed, a tenuous thread binding them against the encroaching dark. "We're in this together," Jake said, his voice steadying. "We will confront it, not just for us, but for everyone like us, new victims of this ancient terror." The altar vibrated violently, resonating with disdain, as if it sensed their renewed courage. It seemed to shrink momentarily, almost frightened. The laughter transformed into something resembling the cries of the lost. But what else hovered just beyond the shadows? Beneath the altar, the ground shifted, cracking open. A soft glow seeped through the fissures, an eerie light beckoning. They could see shadows flitting below, racing toward the surface. "What's happening?" Mike shouted, fear lacing his voice. "Whatever you do, don't give in," Jake yelled, gripping Lily's hand tightly. As the darkness around them shifted and swayed like a restless beast, they braced themselves for whatever emerged. It became clearer now, a lurking horror that thrived on their fears, intent on dragging them down into a twisted reality. What rising terror awaited them from those cracks, and would they find the strength to confront it, or would they surrender to despair? The ground shuddered, fissures splintering wider. A phantom light flared from below, twisting and spiraling like a hand reaching upward, desperate, hungry. Shadows danced upon the walls, flickering in chaotic desperation, slipping in and out of view. The air thickened with dread, every breath feeling like an intrusion upon the encroaching darkness. "Stay back!" Jake shouted, his voice rising over the unsettling rhythm of the heartbeat echoing around them. But the shadows were not intimidated. They coiled tighter, swirling into forms that flickered like dying fireworks. "You cannot resist what is in you," the grotesque figure taunted again, its voice crawling under skin. "You are as much a part of me as your own skin." Jake's stomach lurched. Around him he could sense his friends' growing fright, their uncertainty acting like an electric pulse in the air. He turned to face them, their eyes pool of horror reflecting the darkness. "What if it's right?" Mike whispered, fear cracking through his bravado. "What if we can't fight it?" "No!" Sarah stepped forward, her voice a thin thread of defiance sewn into the gloom. "We're not just fighting an enemy. We're fighting to keep ourselves. We don't know what it can do, but we have to believe." Their breaths came out as sharp gasps, echoing in the malignant silence that followed. Suddenly, the altar burst with a violent force. The luminescent glow spilled forth like the sun breaking through a thick fog, battling back the shadows. For a moment, clarity broke through the suffocating atmosphere, and Jake felt a surge of strength. "Remember," he yelled, clutching Lily's hand tighter. "The good memories, the moments that shaped us. That's our weapon." The shadows recoiled slightly, shrieking as if stung by the light. They thrashed and twisted like a wounded animal, clawing to re-establish their hold. "Jake," Lily's voice trembled, pointing to the altar where strange symbols began to illuminate. "Look." The runes writhed in the light, ancient and alive, drawing Jake's gaze like a gravitational force. They beckoned him closer, carrying with them a sinister allure that promised understanding. Or peril. "I need to touch it," Jake breathed, his hand itching to reach out. The glowing symbols whispered secrets that seemed almost familiar. Just beyond their glow lay an answer. But what cost would come with it? "No!" Mike shouted, panic rising in his voice. "We don't know what it could do." But inside, the quiet dread of abandonment gnawed again. What if it could help us? What if? Jake's words drifted into a cloud of uncertainty, infected by the shadows pressing against them, as if sensing their disarray. Something hit his ankles, a cold grasp that nearly brought him down. Jake stumbled, turning to see a shadow trying to creep up. There were faces forming now, contorted in anguish, reaching out for him. People he remembered, every loss he had suffered blending into one horrid vision. "Jake, don't!" Sarah cried, terror in her eyes. Determined, he resisted instinct, focusing instead on the bonds of friendship surrounding him. They tugged at his heart like a lifeline. "Together!" he shouted again, rallying their spirits. But their connection thinned under the weight of the ancient horror that pulsed behind them. The shadows shrieked louder, feeding off their fears, coiling spirals of dread toward the light they must cling to. Each pulse from the altar resonated, and Jake felt himself hovering on the edge of a breaking point. Would the light swallow the darkness, or would it shatter them all into pieces, forever lost in the chasm of despair? As the shadows surged, ready to strike, Jake made his choice. He lunged forward toward the altar, hand outstretched. Was it empowerment or folly? The moment hung in the air, electric and heavy, as the world stood still. Will it consume him, or finally break the curse? The darkness waited, breathlessly anticipating the moment of truth. Jake's fingers brushed the surface of the altar, the runes flaring brighter with his touch. A shock wave emanated, sending his friends staggering back, faces scrunched in fear. The lights pulsed like a heartbeat, steadying for a moment, then quaking again. "What's happening?" Mike gasped, eyes darting around for an escape. The shadows writhed violently, hissing and slashing at the air as if enraged by Jake's boldness. They shrieked louder. The grotesque figure manifested fully now, a black mass twisted with terror. It loomed, filling the space with a suffocating presence, a chill creeping up Jake's spine. "You should not have touched it," it rasped, voice laced with ancient fury. "You opened the wellspring, and now I will claim you." "No," Jake shouted, but the shadows were too strong. Tendrils snaked around his wrists, pulling him down to the altar, and he fought against the cold grip tightening with a fury. "Jake!" Lily screamed, her voice high and desperate. She lunged but was caught by Mike, who struggled against the overwhelming dread. "Stay together!" Jake yelled, feeling the darkness consume his thoughts, memories flooding back. His mind swirled. He could hear whispered echoes of laughter, the faces of loved ones growing distorted, twisted by fear. The weight of loss threatened to drown him, begging him to succumb. But no. He squeezed his eyes shut and grasped the memories Sarah had shouted about. The warmth of shared moments pulled him back. The summer days at the picnic, the laughter around the campfire, the quiet nights watching the stars. He fought against the despair like a lifeline, feeling the pulsing light from the altar surge stronger with each recollection. One, together. It was almost a chant, the words slipping from his lips like an ancient spell. "Together," echoed Sarah, taking a shuddering breath. She fought off Mike's grip, stepping forward defiantly, her voice trembling but firm. "We're not going to let it win." Lily reached for Jake, palms imploring, eyes gleaming with unshed tears. "You can do this." With her encouragement, a fresh wave of bravery coursed through him. Jake opened his eyes, the shadows momentarily retreating as the light pulsed. He drew strength from those around him, feeding off their fearlessness, transforming their dread into resolve. "Remember us. Remember love. Remember hope," Jake cried, and as he did, he felt a sudden snap inside, a cord unwavering, taut with memories and friendship. The shadows howled, rage boiling over. A bone-chilling scream pierced the air. The grotesque figure shrank back for the first time, the writhing darkness dimming. But just as victory seemed possible, the altar shimmered ominously. The symbols twisted, morphing into unfamiliar shapes. The light flickered, and a low rumble shook the ground beneath them, dust swirling upward like smoke. "Jake! What's happening?" Mike shouted, panic coloring his face. "I don't know, it's changing," Jake gasped, his grip slipping from the altar. The figures formed once more, eyes hollow, whispering secrets in a cacophony of anguish and despair. Shadows crawled back toward them, creeping up their legs, seeking to drag them under once more. "Fight it!" Sarah urged, but it felt like an uphill battle. The ground cracked open near their feet, a dark chasm yawning before them, whispering of terrors waiting beyond the brink. Jake's heart raced. They had distanced themselves from the shadow figure, but new horrors threatened to pull them down like relentless waves. Would the bond they forged be enough to stem the tide of darkness that now sought to swallow them whole? He could sense the shadows building again, the grotesque figure rearing back, ready to unleash another wave of terror. As the ground trembled, Jake knew. The real fight for survival was only just beginning. He looked into the faces of fear flickering around him. Would they unite against the approaching storm of darkness, or would they shatter one by one? With dread hanging heavy in the air, Jake took a step forward. "We need to act now." If Jake and his friends didn't find a way to conquer this ancient evil, the darkness would consume everything they held dear. Was there still time, or had they already made a deal with the devil inside? The ground quaked violently as shadows encroached, but Jake stood firm, the flickering light bathing his face in determination. "Listen to me. We have to focus on who we are." His voice cut through the chaos, sharper than the tendrils of darkness lashing out at them. The shadows writhed, their grotesque figure pulsating in rage, its voice a low growl. You think memories can save you? They only anchor you to your pain. The cavern reverberated with its disdain, and Jake felt a chill creep into his bones. No, he said, shaking his head fiercely. Those memories are our strength. They remind us of the beauty and the love that still exist. He felt a nod from Sarah, her courage flowing into him like an electric charge. "Together!" Mike shouted, joining in, every word like a fist punching through the darkness. The sound bounced off the walls, each syllable like a battle cry. "We fight together!" Lily squeezed Jake's hand, her fear palpable but her resolve burning brightly. "You're right! We can't let it take us!" Jake felt the power of their unity burning bright, as if light itself had become a weapon. Together they drew from the warmth of each shared moment. The joy of family game nights, the exhilaration of summer adventures, the quiet comfort of just being. The shadows hissed as the altar shook, each pulse resonating against the darkness now pressing in ominously. The cavern was alive, every heartbeat echoing the essence of their memories spilling into the open. "Remember your family," Jake cried out, pushing forward as more light erupted from the altar, pushing against the shadows and causing shrieks of agony to arise. As the shadows recoiled, the grotesque figure contorted, its twisted face revealing seething rage. "You will pay for your defiance." "I'd rather pay with memories than lose who I am," Jake shouted defiantly. "We are not just our fears. We are alive. We are here." And with that proclamation, a golden beam of light erupted from the altar, illuminating the darkness completely. Faces of their ancestors appeared in the sprawling glow, echoing strength and resilience from the depths of the ages. They stood behind Jake and his family, amplifying their courage. "Together," they shouted in unison, as if calling forth the very spirit of the mountains. The resonating power surged through them, forcing the tendrils of shadow back as they grasped tighter onto one another. With renewed determination, they raised their arms in defiance. "We choose hope!" they screamed, hearts pounding as the shadows howled in fury. "We choose life!" The altar erupted in a blinding brilliance, dispelling waves of darkness, casting deep shadows back into the corners of the cavern. The figure writhed, the light peeling away layers of its dark facade. With a blood-curdling scream, it began to crumble, shadows scattering like leaves in a tempest. "Keep going," Mike urged, his eyes fierce. "Push through." As they held hands tightly, channeling their bond, they felt an overwhelming rush of ancestral courage filling the void. With one last effort, Jake took a deep breath and cried out, "May our hearts and memories be the light that ignites change. We reclaim our family." And just like that, a fire ignited from within, radiating warmth that consumed the darkness, illuminating the way out. The shadows waned, retreating with desperate shrieks before being sucked into the altar, echoing the weight of their pasts and anguish. The cavern trembled violently once more, the walls cracking, opening a bright path before them. A gust of fresh air surrounded them, cleansing, revitalizing, like a long-lost promise of freedom. "I can see it," Lily beamed, her voice a mixture of awe and excitement. "The way out! Let's go!" Jake yelled, shifting into overdrive, propelling his family forward. They stumbled, but unbroken, they plunged into the opening, light pouring in as shadows surrendered to the brightness. They emerged from the cavern, breathless and disoriented but alive, bathed in moonlight that washed away the remnants of terror. The weight of the woods drifted away, shadows retreating into the trees, no longer the suffocating veil they once were. As they staggered into the clearing, Jake took a moment to look back, the realization settling in. They had faced their past, confronted the darkness, and emerged together. The laughter of the town rang in the air, held tightly to their hearts as a compass guiding them home. Jake turned to his family, tears of relief and victory glimmering in his eyes. "We did it. We really did it. Together." Sarah nodded, beaming, arms wrapping around each of them in a warm embrace. The darkness was lifting, their laughter resounding brightly against the backdrop of their cabin, promising brighter days ahead. As they walked home under the watchful stars, Jake knew they had carved out their own narrative, one woven with strength, resilience, and unbreakable spirit. They carried their memories like bright flames tucked away, guiding their way into a brighter, shared future. But amidst the soft laughter and glimmers of hope, a new voice whispered quietly through the darkened woods. It was a reminder. Though they had escaped the horrors that night, the mountain's roots ran deep, preserving their stories, their truths. And so, the legend would continue. But this time it would be theirs to tell. Now it's your turn to join the journey. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to give us the love we need. Your support fuels our passion. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this spine-chilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel through your actions.